Well, I just want to welcome to the show, Ditte Maria, le-Fevre. You're coming into us from where? Tell everybody where you're at.
I'm in Denmark, Copenhagen.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. And it makes me feel like super international and fabulous even by having you say that. So thanks. Also, Ditte had her headshots done today. So this is a big actor day for you, I guess.
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
and how'd they go?
Everything was done in my home.
Oh, really? The photographer comes to your house?
Yes.
Is that typical?
Did.
Is that typical?
No, it's not. But she said, I want to come to your place. So that was
oh my
really...
gosh, how cool.
Yeah.
And was it all natural lighting? Did she also bring lighting and stuff?
Yeah, oh, she did. But I live on the 4th floor and there's so much light right now. So we didn't use anything. Yeah.
Wait, I feel like you just have to, everyone here is like, wait, when can I want that. Like, I want to not have to schlep my clothes and drive to another place. Like you guys, this is a cottage industry. Let's begin it. So let's talk about what you're really here to talk about, Ditte. So Ditte had success getting representation in the country that she's in and in another country. Isn't that correct?
Actually, I only got representation in England. I don't have representation here.
That is wild. Okay, we can't wait to hear. But before we go there, just so some people know a little more, could you tell a little bit of your story as an actor, just how it all started and what things look like right now in your career? And then we'll dig into the journey of representation for you.
Definitely.
Great.
Sure. Well, I studied in New York City. I studied with le-Fevre I graduated in 2004. And previous to this, I had done several acting programs here in Denmark, but Meisner was really what I wanted to do. So I went to New York, lived there. And then I decided to come back. I never really wanted to live abroad. I like living in Denmark, but it was a great experience. And then I decided to go back and thought, okay, now I'll, start my career. But that did not happen.
Got it.
It was very difficult to get back. The industry here is extremely closed. At that point, it was totally closed. Nobody was invited in except the people from the state schools here.
Got it.
So it was just a little bit like having dreamt something because I was the only one there in New York. So I couldn't really talk to anybody about what I experienced, what I went through. So it was a little bit like coming back to the life that I had before, except that it just didn't happen. New York didn't happen.
Yeah.
It was very tough.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And also here, like being the only person in your class who maybe can talk about this experience or at your school. And also while you're in school, you're not you're not out there pounding the pavement trying to get acting gigs at the same time because you're really invested in school, and also your visa can get in the way and all that stuff that's happening at the same time. But then to go back and be like, wait, I just learned all this great stuff. What am I going to do with it? It sounds like, Is that what it was like when you came home?
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. Fortunately, I was invited to join an ensemble. Some actors who graduated from a school in London, they invited me to do a Molière play. And it was just like, meeting old friends because they had the same experience.
Got it.
So I worked with them for a while, but then I quickly realized that the industry was so close, so I had to do something else. And then I started to do a lot of theater in, the corporate world, one-to-one communication training, forum theater, presentation technique, etc.
Okay.
And I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I made it a business. A successful business, and I really love what I do, but it also kept me busy and kept me away from what I really wanted to do.
So wait, before you go too far, Ditte, help us understand, because you said some words there and I was like, I'm not sure I know all those words. What is the work that you're talking about that you got as an actor in that moment can you help us understand, just because we might have different language for it? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know forum theater? It's Auguste Boal.
Oh, yes, yes.
It's theater of the oppressed.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
So it's taken into the corporate world, which he actually didn't want, but they've taken it into the corporate world where you use it in communication training.
God, so you're going into businesses and helping them be better what they do, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Wow.
Every single problem they have.
So that was a way that you use your acting skills and made some money, and you're working all the time, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Got it. Wow.
Then I started to doing leadership training one-on-one, where, if a leader doesn't fit into an environment, then, I work with him one-on-one, and I would, for instance, yesterday I worked as somebody's teacher. He had a problem with her, and I would get into character, and then I would, have a dialogue with him And then I would give him feedback afterwards of what I experienced as the teacher.
Wow. That is such a cool, I mean, I think the thing that I think of that we have in the States is we have people who do, they're called like medical something, where they pretend that they're patients and they meet with a doctor and they have to be like, my stomach hurts. And the doctor has to figure out what's wrong with them. And like they practice to get their medical license or whatever. It's obviously very different because yours is, you do have more of a say in what that conversation is looking like, because you're going to go afterwards and say, so you're playing all the way around from I'm the person in the scene and I'm giving you the feedback of how you could do that better next time. That's great. Okay.
Yeah.
But that was still like not the big dream. It was like good money, hopefully paying the bills, but like not
exactly
right. Got it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I started doing lots of stuff. I started teaching Meissner technique. I taught television host. There was plenty of work for me. It wasn't like I lacked the work or money, but what I really wanted to do was do theater and film and television. And it just didn't happen. I mean, I got my first part 10 years later, and it was simply because of a mosquito bite. I kid you not. I was coaching a child on a set. Yeah. And he got a mosquito bite, and the director was like, we have to switch the parts. Oh, Ditte, you're an actor, right? You can join, you can be the, And
Shut
I was
up.
like, yeah, yes. So I went into the bathroom like, oh my God, I put up plays. I've done all this, I've done everything. And I got a part because of a mosquito bite. This is just like surreal. Yeah.
So what led you to decide, so you were getting at that point then, because you have a resume, I've seen some of your work on your reel and everything, you've done work. So is that when the door started to open after the mosquito bite?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's wild. Yes.
It is. I mean, the industry started changing here, especially the film and television industry. Okay. They started opening up. The casting directors really invited us in.
Great.
And I mean, here you don't get as many auditions as you do where you live, but we would, if you get 3 a year, that's, good.
Okay. Got it. And so is that what led you to say, I want reps in a different city? Is that what led you to say, I want reps in the UK? Like what connected the dots from, there's not enough here at home, I want to go? Because not a lot of actors will have that experience. I mean, in the United States, you might be like, someone living in Kansas might be like, well, I know I want to audition in New York or Atlanta or something, but not a lot of people are like, I want to be auditioning or getting work in another country. What inspired that for you?
Well, definitely that the market opened up, and going to London takes 45 or 1.5 hours. I live very close to the airport, so it's so close by. Why not do it? And also because I think in Britain they use actors who are human beings, and it's an industry where it's not about relationships. It's a business, like the business I come from with my corporate world. With my corporate work. And here it's a little pond where everybody needs to know one another. At least that's how it felt. So I think I really was hoping to find a professional setting. And the interesting part is that it actually changed so much here. So I feel like now we've started to be really professional here because we produce so many things. Yeah.
And where you are now, just so everyone knows the lay of the land, in Copenhagen, is an agent not a thing? I know some countries don't do agent things.
It is, but it's pretty new still. 10 years ago, we probably had 2 agents. Now we have 8 or 10. There are not that many, and of course they also had to understand what that field was, like the casting directors. So everything was just a little bit delayed of what I was used to from living in the States.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to realize, oh, we're just behind. Oh, that's what's happening. Yeah.
Got it. And right now, what I'm hearing you say is in your home turf, like that you're not shut out of opportunity by not having an agent or manager, whereas in New York or in London, we all know that like there's stuff you're just never going to be able to audition for. So for you, it seems like getting an agent where you are was less priority because I'm getting auditions that are here anyway. So I want to really find another place. So can we get into some of that? Let's talk about that a little bit, shall we?
Yes,
yeah,
we shall.
So first, share us the resort, or like tell us the story of how you found your representation. Can you walk us through that?
Well, I got my representation because of you.
Sure. I didn't do the work. You did the work. So let's be clear here. You did the implementation. So full disclosure, of course, Ditte is a graduate of Agent Goals. But the reason why I thought I've been hounding her to get on the podcast with me is because, in the time zones, it's been tough for us to figure out when to do this. But the reason why I really wanted is because I know so many actors who have said, I want representation in New York, but I live in LA, or I want representation in the UK, but I live in Paris. So, and they who've not heard the stories of how it is possible. And so I wanted to just bring your story so that they could just see how it works. Whether or not you decide to become a student of Agent Goals, that's up to you all. But I want you guys to understand how it had worked for here. So you can walk us through a little bit of, what was the journey of getting there? So before, what I just want to hear is before,
Yes.
were you getting any work at all in the UK? Was that something that was happening for you at all in any way?
Nothing. I mean, it's exactly like the States. You have to have an agent. So I knew that in order to get in, I would need an agent. And I had heard of actors coming back to Denmark from, England or the States or France or wherever, who got agents in England and started to get work. So I was a little bit like, oh, maybe I need to do the same.
Got it. Great.
And
Wait,
then
can I pause you for 1 second? I want to pause you for 1 second. I just want to let everyone to just tap into the power of story, which is why I'm so glad you're on the podcast right now, is we hear of somebody else doing it, like we hear a story of someone else having that experience. We think, oh, maybe I can do that. So I just really hope if you're listening to this, Ditte is a fabulously talented actress. Great. Good for her. It isn't because she's a unicorn that she was able to find representation in another country. I really want to make sure that's clear. It's because she took the steps to make it happen. And so I just want to make sure if anyone's starting to write themselves off or think that this couldn't happen for them, or they're like, I don't know, like, I really just want to encourage to listen into the possibility here. Certainly there are places where I'm sure you had highs and lows, and we'll get into that, but I just want to make sure you hear that. So you heard some other actors doing it, you're like, oh, I want that too. If they have that, I bet you I can make that work. Right. So cool. That's so exciting. I love that you took the jump then. So then walk us through just a little bit more. So as you were going through the process. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I had a student of mine who got an agent in London, and he was like, "You just have to. I'll give you some addresses, and you just have to reach out." And then I was sitting, and I really started procrastinating because I got into the whole fear, vulnerable, I can't do this. And then it was so easy for me to just focus on my job. I'm a successful, individual. I can do other stuff. Yeah. And then, he, every time I met him, he was like, so did you? And I was like,
no. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was my student. I was a little bit like, oh, yeah. Yes, So I thought, what's going on here? I can easily write an email saying, here's my headshot and my resume, but there's something other than that. And I have a sense that there is a lot of stuff that I haven't dealt with within the last 10 or 15 years being back home. So I need to figure out who I want to reach out to, what I want to say. There were so many questions, and I couldn't really get into the whole, I'll just write an email in 5 minutes and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And then I actually don't remember how I saw your program. I got an email and I was immediately like filled with so many sensations, like, no.
No, he's speaking to my soul. I'm mad.
Yeah. And I was like, why am I reacting so strongly? And then I thought, well, there must be something here. Yeah. And I had just joined a leadership program with Marie Folio.
Yeah.
Great. And one of the first questions she asked is, which business do you want to focus on? And I had just paid all this money to her, and I was like, but it's the acting thing. And then I was like, and then you were there, and I was like, okay, I'll buy another program, and I did. And I'm so happy that I did, because I would never have been able to answer those questions on my own. I would have been a mess. Yeah. I would have been vulnerable. I would have been in my emotions constantly. Yeah. And I really think that is the main takeaway for me, is that I can show up professionally as I show up in my business. I can show up as an actor. And I didn't do that before because I was very hurt, and I was very confused, and I wasn't grounded. I couldn't really figure out why I had been treated the way I had been treated here. And it was nobody's fault. I was just so angry. Yeah. I felt like I had been, placed on the moon, and I knew I couldn't show up with that. So I really needed to figure out how to be professional and still own my story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you're saying here, Dita, because, and I want to just take it back to the beginning, is like, we want to think it's as easy, just write an email. And what I just believe that if it was that easy, then everyone would have an agent. Everyone would already have an agent when we having this conversation. And you could have probably gotten it up to just write an email, but I think magnetically you wouldn't have attracted in the right match person. You would have had a shitty meeting. You wouldn't have known what to say in the meeting. Like, there's so many things that could have happened. I don't say that to be like, it's not possible to do that. I say that to think about what I love that you said is you knew that you wanted to bring, obviously the reason you weren't able to reach out while your student just suggested it to you is you were like, there's something about this where I don't feel conscious yet around this experience. Something about this doesn't feel mindful yet. And I just can't bring myself to do that. Was your body knowing before you did probably, yeah, you don't do this yet. Right. And I just appreciate what you're saying, because I think that a lot of people, when they think of, like getting an agent, they think, well, it's just about getting an agent. And so often, I've seen it when these actors have success inside of this program, and I'm just using it as an example. So y'all, I'm just sharing the story so that you understand what I've seen, is that when they begin to own themselves as an actor, somebody different emerges on the other side, and then they call in the manager or agent who sees that actor. And what you said, I think so beautifully, is like, I feel like I was on the moon. I get this picture of like, I'd been orphaned by this industry and and I was carrying some of that. I didn't want to be carrying it, but I knew that I was. And I just love that you were, because it does demand a willingness to say, I'm going to look at myself. It does really demand a, like, can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you?
Oh. Well, I always look at myself in my business as very capable of, I'm outgoing. I can talk to people. I am very professional. I have the same clients I had 20 years ago. I'm reliable, etc., etc., etc.
Yes.
But every time I showed up as an actor, I was just a mess. So every time I looked at, Ditte, the business person, I was like, that's who I want to be. But why am I such a mess? So it took a long time to accept the fact that I was just lost. It was a little bit like, here's the highway and I went that way, or actually that way. Yeah. And I think the first part of Agent Goals, we not to get too much into the program, but I was faced with my story. And one thing that I realized pretty quickly was that the story my teacher told me when he came to visit me in Denmark, 15 years ago. He's been here a few times. We're close. And he said, oh, Ditte, you were left outside the candy store. People are sitting inside and they're eating all the candy and you're left outside. And that image really stuck with me. And it was true. In the beginning, it was totally true. I was left outside and everybody else enjoyed the party. Not everybody, but some enjoyed the party. And when I did Agent Goals, I realized that the door had been open for a while. I just hadn't gone in. And that was really tough to accept.
Oh, that makes me cry. Yeah. That makes me cry. It makes me, because it really does, because I just so understand it. I get, like, look at them all having such success in there. And I could walk through that door, but something about where I am right now feels more comfortable, more natural. I can't even see it where I am. The door's out of my sight. I don't even notice that it's open. I so understand what you're saying. Yeah.
It was almost like the pain I felt being outside. The pain that I felt being outside was something that I had gotten used to, and I could accept. And I didn't know what would be inside. So I just accepted the fact that this is what it's going to be like. But when I got conscious about it and realized that the door was actually open, then I had to ask myself, well, why don't you go in? And I was like, I don't dare. I haven't dared. I've just been using the same excuse that was true some years back, that the door was closed, but it's not anymore. Yeah. So what do you want to do? Do you want to go in?
Yeah. Do you want to go in?
Yeah.
Because you've been staring in there long enough at that party that you want to be at for so long. And like, I mean, that's so powerful. I think that's so powerful. So what I heard you say is that in the beginning, you had to, like, you were kind of forced to look at this part of yourself, that was holding yourself out of the game, that was saying, we're saying over here, so that you could identify that. And I think that so many actors listening can probably, sometimes we can reduce this to fear of success, but I think it's so much more nuanced and sophisticated than that, because it's some degree of acknowledging you're just as talented as the people in there and making them a little special or unique, where they've got something I don't have, and I'm just never going to be them. And it's just not, it's not true. And it's some part of you protecting yourself, obviously, right? It's some part of you
Definitely.
trying to, it's just a perverse protection is what I'd say. It's just like, it's perversely protecting you from what you really want and what really you're meant to have. So on
Yeah.
the other side of this, so if you're on the other side of this, how does that now, how do you bring that in now? Like, how does that now translated? What is that transformed into or transmuted into for you?
I think I spent a lot of time not being vulnerable, being really tough
Hmm.
and succeeding and showing people that I would not give up. So I was not in touch with my vulnerability. And that whole thing about standing in front of the door made me extremely vulnerable. And owning that vulnerability was actually key. And I think that changed everything for me, that vulnerability is a powerful tool. And I mean, I remember Bill, he always said to us, you have to have skin like a rhino outside acting class, and inside you have to have skin like, a small bird, or, very delicate when you open your emotions. But I knew that I was the bird outside also. I was just constantly getting hurt. So I needed to figure out how to be vulnerable without being hurt.
Yeah. Yes. That is such a great lesson. What I love that you said here too, because I think a lot of actors can get, oh yeah, I get that my vulnerability might be a superpower. But what I think we're missing when we say that is how so many actors, it's normal and creative people in general, just I value my determination, and I value my ambition and my dogged approach, and that I'm totally into this business and I'm going it. And what we don't realize is that can actually start to become almost an enemy of the state. It's like your doggedness is not actually allowing you to say, "Ooh, there's also a fullness to me." And like, this does mean something to me. And I am actually sad that I'm not where I wanted to be yet. Or there's something behind it at times too. And because of course we value, toxic productivity and capitalism makes us value the doggedness more than maybe the softness. But I think if we don't acknowledge it, then we're not showing up in our fullness. And so I want to get to that piece of when you're attracting in the right person. But if you had to identify, you might have already answered this, but if you had to identify one piece of agent goals that really helped you the most, what would you say that would be and why?
It's very difficult to say, because I just look back at it now, the different steps. And I thought to myself, I'll even do this again. I think it was so interesting because there are so many parts of it that fits right when you're there. And then at other times they'll fit at that point. Yeah. So it's the whole shebang, it's what you need. I mean, and you can, I think I went through all of it, but I can tell that I actually didn't. I selected stuff.
Oh.
And
how dare you?
How dare I? But I think I'll need some of it in the future.
Well, I'll just tell you, Ditte, that the one thing, if you decide, I had another person who's in UK looking. There's an actor that's one of my clients right now, and he has reps in Los Angeles, Paris, and the UK. And I also want to be like, what is your life that you have? I want to have your life that's first of all, that's the first thing I always think. But he used agent goals again in the same exact way. So I just encourage you, if you're thinking about another market, because since you said it sounds like traveling is not going to be difficult for you, then I would think about the possibility of that. So I think you answered this. I think you answered really what you learned about yourself through this process. But if there was one part of this, because we're really talking about more of the esoteric and the feels that came through on this thing. Was there anything practical inside of the course that you feel like you really leaned on hard? Whether, I'm not going to give you any ideas. I don't want to fill in the blank for you. Was there any practical piece that
actually
really
in the beginning you had a lot of sayings, we had to read out a pledge, and you had all these sayings, and I still use them, bird by bird, Ditte.
Oh, I love it. Good.
Yeah, there are so many things where at the point I was like, why do we have to do this? And now
you were mad. I get it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And now I just use it. I think those are very valuable to me. It was very valuable to me to have the community that you can step into, and also when you need it, and also be on your own. I don't think I would have done this if it hadn't been for the coronavirus. I had time. Yeah. I could really focus. I think accountability partners really are key for me. I didn't know they were that important, and I took that away also. I had 2 accountability groups, one of writing group and another relationship group that I meet every week.
Great.
because of this. So I think it's very hard to choose.
Those were all great. Can you just give a bunch of answers? Those are all super helpful. What's so interesting is, so when you were doing the program is when we figured out, now we create accountability groups for everybody, because it became so valuable for people. And I just want to acknowledge what you said around, like, because of coronavirus, I was able to get it done, meaning like I was hunkered down. I couldn't do other things in my life. And what's interesting is a lot of people, I have someone reach out recently who said, they're having some kind of a surgery. And they said, I'm going to have surgery and I'm going to be laid up for a while. I'm wondering if I should wait. And I was like, actually, you can go through it at such a leisurely pace if you're going to be enough, not you're going to be in pain, obviously, but that you can have the respite of like, oh, I've got time today to work on this. It can be different. I also say that, that is not to frighten anyone that you can't get this done when you're living your normal life, but there is a certain amount of conscious energy that I think you're going to want to put towards this. Isn't like, I'm going to do it over the course of the next 10 months. I'll do that. I actually feel like you want it to feel like you're embarking on something. And if you're only touching the curriculum once every 3 weeks, then I feel like you're not going to feel like I'm in this and it's going to do the magic that it's meant to do. You'll probably still get a manager at the agent at the end, but you're not going to have that experience that I want you to have. Right?
Exactly. And I actually felt in the beginning that I would skip some steps. And then I realized, damn it, I have to go back and do it because I have to do it.
Good. That's a cautionary tale, everybody. So tell us about reaching out and getting meetings and how that all went. We want to hear that part of the story. Tell us that. Piece. Okay.
Well, you also had this saying like, no drama, no delay. And when I got my agent, I wrote you saying there was lots of drama, lots of delay. Yes. And it was because it was a tough journey. And I really feared reaching out to agents. I at the end, I still, is my email good enough? Is this good enough? And when I read the email,
you had such a damn good email too. How dare you? Your email is so good. So just so y'all know, Ditte, I get a chance to look at everyone's email before they send it, and her email was it was the bomb. It was the bomb. So okay, I just appreciate you sharing that you were still scared because it was a great email. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I looked up. There are so many agents in London, and I was so confused. You say a list of 500 or something. In London, there are not that many, but in comparison to Denmark, it's like 140. I don't know any. And I was doing research, and then I realized I just have to choose some. So I just choose 20. You
cheated a little bit. I like good for me to know this. Go on.
Yes.
Good. Cheated and it worked though, so I'm okay.
And I was supposed to choose. Fine, I was supposed to choose 20 and 20 and 20.
Yes.
But then actually the emails I got a reply pretty fast from a lot of people, and I was so what?
Yes, exactly. You're like, wait, it did work. Shit.
Yeah. And the really nice ones were it's coronavirus. It's damn, I can't take you. I can't take you in. I really want to take you in. I just want to let you know that whenever this is done, please reach out again. Like those emails were really nice as well. It was just wow. But the first.
So wait, before you go there, what did it give you to receive responses like that? What do you take away from that? I took away that the email I sent was really, it needed a reply. If you were a good person, if you were a professional person, you would reply that email. Yeah. And can I tell you what I want you to take away too? I'm just going to give this to you. I want you to feel wanted. I think that's so important. I'm in on the first that yes, we wrote an email that totally nailed, they're not going to not respond if you're a good person. There's the email's written. So it compels you to respond. So you're not having that annoying silence. And then number 2 is, I'm wanted. Yeah. I just wanted you to make sure you take that away. Okay. So go on. So keep walking us through.
And actually I cheated a little bit also because I sent an email to a Danish agent, not an Agent Gold email, just here's my headshot resume. And the reason why I think I did it was because at that point, I actually don't think I wanted that agent. I just wanted to see. They didn't reply. After a week, they replied, we're not interested.
Yeah.
And so I got the same reply from the effort that I put into the email, I think.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Well said. Really well said. Because I think then you're not showing up vulnerably.
Exactly.
Right. You're reducing yourself to your headshot and your resume. And this is all I'm worth. And so then they get to look at you as this is all they're worth. Right. Yeah. So okay. That's not enough for me. Cause then we're just adding up how many pennies do I have in a stack right here? Or how many dollars do I have in a stack? It becomes receipts. And I don't want to, I think that is where a lot of actors can fall into trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember I would have thought that I would be annoyed or upset, or I didn't really feel anything when I got the reply. I was a little bit like, oh, I sent this out, I got this back, boop,
Yeah. Well, also because you're having that great experience with the London people, it was like, why would I let this disturb this beautiful energy over here? So tell me about who came through. How it worked.
Well, within 8 hours, a woman called Victoria emailed me, and it was her assistant saying, Victoria really wants to meet you, and can you set up a meeting as fast as possible? And I was like, okay. And yes. And then I was, I listened to Brian, think not tomorrow. I have to spend a few days to see if other people respond. But I just had such a good feeling about their email, their website, the whole approach. It was a little bit like, we want you to decide. We've already decided.
Wow. Yeah. Before you even met with them, you got that feeling.
That's the feeling I got. And when we were in the meeting, she was like, it's your call. I'm here. Do you want some feedback? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
So I want everyone to just notice, like that can't happen when you just send a random email with your headshot and resume and like, here I am, because she had to know who you were. And you did such a good job of willingly, and you said it, you weren't being vulnerable in your acting business. Like you obviously went fully vulnerable in your this email and said, this is who I am. So someone could see you. And then I always think that meeting, we want a meeting to be someone just confirming their suspicions about who they think you are. Just be the evidence of what they expected from your email. And it sounds like you really did that. So they're your people.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome. Definitely. And how's it been going?
I mean,
I know that's not always we can't always gauge that in the beginning. I always think like you got to give it some time, but how's it going so far?
Well, I think just the first meeting, she gave me feedback for the first time, a professional feedback of what I needed to change, what she wanted more of. So we actually made a plan pretty fast. And I had never experienced that before. I have done that with other people, but this time, being told exactly how she wanted it. And she says, I'm tough. And I'm like, go ahead. I've been waiting for you.
Oh, I love it. Yes, you're like, listen, I talk to leaders all the time. Please, this is what exactly. We want this.
Yeah. So, I signed with her in May, and coronavirus was here. So I was okay with nothing happening until October, kind of.
Right.
And everybody else said the same here, that agents in London, the auditions were, very few.
Right.
But then I was a little bit like, oh, I really want an audition, it was, yeah. So I actually talked to you about it in a meeting, and then I started a whole new process of thinking that I might have gone back into the fear thing about, now I got that agent, I need to watch out and make sure that she likes me, etc. And I was a little bit like, no, this is a relationship. I can also say, hey, listen, what's going on? What do you want more of? It's a teamwork.
Please. And what you just said is so important to me, because I love that you at least checked in with yourself. Like, wait, I'm not going to let this dread sneak in that, like, if I don't do a good job, she's going to drop me, any kind of that garbage that shows up, because you started your relationship so honestly. You didn't like try to be like, look at my amazing career that's already happening in the UK. Won't you just sign me and get on board? Like, you were like, this is what's happening. This is what I've accomplished so far. Here's places where I'd like to, like, you were very clear. And so when you start a relationship like that, you don't get to have to be weird later. I feel like and so I just love that you checked yourself from going there. You stopped yourself from having those weird thoughts.
Yeah, because it was me being weird. It wasn't her. She's been like, I'm here for you. What do you want?
Oh, I love this so much. So is there any, I'm going to coach for 1 second. Is there any reason you don't want to get an agent in Copenhagen? Do you feel like it's a waste of time and energy?
It's not a waste of time and energy. And I would want one, and doing this interview, I'm thinking about it, but I don't think that I've finally decided whether or not to do so. I mean, all the casting directors here, they know me, and they call me in.
Yeah.
So I think, maybe at some point, but I just want to see how it goes with.
No, Victoria. I love that, because I love that clarity here, because I think a lot of actors would be surprised to hear you say that, but because it's a different kind of market, like what is the point of having a relationship that might just distract my energy from the auditions I'm already getting? Like there's no loss from this. So I just appreciate you thinking about it, but then making the right decision with your energy. That's incredible. Yeah.
So actually I gave my agent in London the first job.
Tell us how to go.
Yes. Well, I was one of my clients wanted to hire me for a commercial in Sweden, and I had signed with Victoria in London, and she said everything that takes place outside of Denmark, that I'll take care of that. That's our contract.
Great.
So, and it was just fantastic because it was a client of mine, and I really felt like I need to do them a favor. So it's awkward if I do this. So I could just say, talk to Victoria.
Oh my God. Yes.
He managed everything. And it was just like the longest, talk with these people who were really kind, but didn't know what they wanted. And she did everything. And it was just like, thank you. So It was interesting that I gave her the first job, and now
I feel great about it. And you feel great about it. Right. And I always think it's so important is like, when you build those relationships, because I think everyone wants to be offer only, a point where people just know who you are and they offer you the role. But even at that moment, you want there to be an agent or manager who's stepping in and doing the negotiating, because when you begin to negotiate for yourself, you almost always devalue yourself. It can make the relationship weird. And I just love that you're like, I have someone else who like is covering my ass and also knows things that I don't know that I might not mean to ask in the first place anyway. I love that. That's that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to just for a second, there's probably someone who's listening right now or watching this on YouTube and who are where you were when you started this process. And what would you want to say to them?
Sit down, close your eyes and feel your vulnerability and ask yourself why you haven't reached out yet. And if you really want to reach out and it's something that's important to you, then this, I'm sorry, it sounds like a commercial, Brian, but it's really like, this will take you through everything step by step. And you will not regret it, because there's so many areas that you can use this in, for headshot, showreel, how to write an email, how to approach people, how to create a professional relationship, how to show up, how to be accountable. There's just a ton of things that I learned in this process. And somewhere I already knew, but they were unconscious. So everything is on a conscious level now. And I can actually go back and, that's what we did. Yes.
Although I love what you just said, Ditte, about, first, thank you so much for the compliment about the program, but I love what you said about it's conscious now, because I think that's, full disclosure, when I created this program, it was because I worked with a bunch of actors one-on-one and was like, I'm doing the same thing and it's working over and over. How do I stretch this to be able to be accommodated by more actors? And I think some magic happened between that step where I got even clearer on what helps. And it wasn't like Brian woke up one day and knew what he was doing. It's because I had done all this trial and error with actors before it finally arrived and became agent goals. So I just appreciate you saying that something that was subconscious for me is now conscious, because I feel like that's also how the program was created in some way. Something that I was subconsciously already helping actors do, like became more explicit, for lack of a better word. And then the other thing that you said that I think I want everyone to hear is the beginning of what you said is, close your eyes, get vulnerable and ask, do you really want this? I'm gonna let the peacock squawk for a second. Maybe we can cut that out, Natalie, or we can leave it in, y'all. That was the peacocks.
Yes,
they're wild here. We'll leave it in. Okay. So what you said is you do have to be willing to acknowledge that you want this. And I think there is this sticky pride thing that comes up where like, I don't want to have to say that I even want an agent or need a manager, because why hasn't it already freaking happened already? Like, and I just appreciate you saying that, like, to really be clear on if you really want this, if you want to have auditions at that level, we all know you have to have reps to do it. And maybe you don't. And that's really full permission set. Maybe like, you know what? I like the work I can get on my own, and I'm actually okay at the level. So really just not having the contagious goal. I always think like if it's other actors' goals, cool, but is it actually your goal and your willingness to say, okay, I'm going to put effort towards it in a thoughtful way, whatever that is, whether that's agent goals or something else. But I appreciate you acknowledging that. Ditte, it was really nice to spend this time with you. I just really know that there are probably a lot of actors listening right now that are so excited about knowing the international career that you have. I think that we're maybe a little jealous too. It sounds so cool and interesting, and the opportunities you're going to get are going to be unique. And I just want to thank you for connecting with us today. There's probably some actors who would love to be able to stay in touch. If there's anybody could follow you on Instagram or anything like that.
Definitely. Go to dittemarialefevre.com or Ditte Maria le-Fevre on Instagram. Yeah.
Great. We will make sure we put that into the show notes so you can see. And if you have the chance to look at her website, I will just say that she's got some fabulous, really great footage, and I love seeing you act. So I just want to acknowledge, if you have the chance to go over and look at that. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that it is actually like 7 o'clock where you are, Ditte. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Yeah. And it's 10 a.m. over here. So I just really thank you for, after having a full day of life, saying yes to joining me for the podcast. And so grateful for hearing your story today. I know we will stay in touch. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you so
For
much,
sure.
Brian.
For sure.
Thank you.